Can you really make a living as a card counter in 2020? I'm going to answer that in this video. I'm Colin and I run Blackjack Apprenticeship, and for over 15 years I've been training people how to use card counting to legally turn the tables on the casinos at Blackjack. I've had multiple six-figure years myself. I've cumulatively won over $600,000 as a card counter. I've run teams responsible for taking roughly $4 million out of casinos over the years, and over the last decade, I've been running Blackjack Apprenticeship, training others how to beat casinos. I recently got an email from someone, let's call him Jack, and he said, Colin, is it realistic that I can quit my job and count cards for a living? Or another thing I get asked regularly is, with changing casino conditions, with casino surveillance databases, changing table limits and rules, is it even possible to make a living as a card counter in 2020? Unfortunately, there is not a simple answer to this question. I've been racking my brain trying to think of a good analogy of how to communicate this, and this is what I came up with. It would be like if someone said, Colin, is it possible that I could become an ultra marathon runner? People that run 100-mile or even longer runs, and let's say you want to become an ultra marathon runner. Well, the first basic thing is, do you have the physical capacity to train to a point where you could run 100 miles. I don't think I could. I got kind of a bum knee, and I just don't think I would ever be able to run 100 miles. Another thing is, do you have the discipline to put in the training necessary? You know, this isn't just training up to do a 5 or 10 mile run. This is training up to a point where you're doing this grueling 100-mile run. Do you have the discipline to do it? Third, do you have the time for this? You know, there's going to be incredible amounts of time that would need to go into your training to become an ultra marathon runner. And fourth, I would say, do you have the mental resolve, the mental fortitude to stick with it through all the training and all those long runs, and then through the 100-mile runs in that? Well, okay, let's stop talking about ultra marathon running and say, well, what are those things that are necessary to make a living as a card counter in 2020. Let's talk about what you're going to need to think through to determine if you have what it takes to make a living off of Blackjack. This is quitting your job, living off savings, making enough from your bankroll to provide for yourself. And again, this is more difficult than just having a winning game and beating your local casino or going on some blackjack trips and having a profitable game. This is making a living off of it. That's why I equate it to an ultra marathon, which is these grueling 100-mile runs, as opposed to a marathon, which is, you know, not easy, but much more attainable. The first of these things is going to be, can you get to a point of having a perfect winning game? And you could say, well, Colin, yeah, you say this all the time, you got to have a perfect game. But I would tell you, 9 out of 10 people that say, I want to become a card counter, never get a perfect game. I don't know what the stats are for percentage of people that say, I'm going to run a marathon, that actually run it, but the vast majority of people never get there. They get all excited about the idea and they shortchange their training, whether it's perfect basic strategy, perfect counting, perfect true count conversion, perfect deviations, perfect betting, being able to do all that perfectly in a casino while keeping track of if the dealers mispaid you and everything else going on with all the emotions of wins and losses and heat. Can you do all those things perfectly? If you can't, then you don't have the capacity to even consider, you know, quitting your job and playing blackjack. I just got to get that out of the way because it's so essential. The second essential for figuring out if you have what it takes to make a living off of blackjack is, do you have the bankroll for it? I started with $2,000 and was playing on the days that I wasn't working substitute teaching at the time, and it was enough to generate positive EV. I was probably generating $5 an hour, maybe $7 or $10 an hour, but that's not enough to live off of. And today, you might need $5,000 to get started, but to actually make a living off of it, I would say you would want at least a $50,000 bankroll. If you don't have at least $50,000, better yet, $75,000 or $100,000, do not consider trying to play blackjack for a living. Granted, one of the big considerations is how much do you need to live off of. It's a big difference if you need to live off of $1,000 a month versus $10,000 a month. The more you need to live off of, the more EV you're going to have to generate each month, and the more money you're going to have to make and more hours you'll have to get in to make sure you can cover your expenses. But regardless, anybody that I know that is living off of blackjack, they want to be playing games that are $100 an hour minimum, and that's going to necessitate at least a $50,000 bankroll. If you don't have a $50,000 bankroll, does that mean you should not consider card counting? No, absolutely not. You can generate positive EV with much less than that, but to have enough savings to live off of and generate enough EV to really be what I would consider a living wage, I would think you'd want $50,000. You can be making, $20, $25 an hour with maybe a $10,000 bankroll and, $50 an hour with a $25,000 bankroll. And what many card counters like myself do is we start with what we've got, we build it up, and then if we reach a point where we have the bankroll for it, we could consider going professional. A third consideration is, do you have the time you're going to need to put into this? Do you have the time for training, which typically takes about 200 hours to get to a perfect game? But also, do you have the time to put into playing your local casinos and getting more proficient and growing your bankroll? The time to travel and do some blackjack trips? It takes a lot of time. A card counter generally plays about 40 to 80 hours a month. However, for every hour at the blackjack tables, there's probably at least 1 hour that goes into their training, into their travel, into their record keeping, and just the other parts of running any sort of business. Fourth, do you have the mental and emotional fortitude to handle the ups and downs and everything that comes with being a full-time professional blackjack player? It is one thing to be able to play your local casinos with a winning game. It is a whole other thing when your entire living is coming from playing these tables. How are you going to handle the travel? There's a lot of travel if you want to do this professionally. Secondly, how are you going to handle the winning and losing streaks? Third, how are you going to handle the heat, the back-offs, and everything that comes with beating casinos that don't like being beaten? This is kind of an interesting side note, but studies have shown that emotional intelligence is a greater predictor of success than IQ. Well, what does that have to do with blackjack? Well, you can be brilliant, but if you cannot handle all the emotional swings of the job, the losing streaks where you feel like I can't lose another day, and then you do, that is coupled with back-offs by casinos, playing high stakes, traveling. If you can't handle that stuff, then you really won't be able to make it as a card counter. If you can handle the stress, if you enjoy the travel, and if you've got the right support network and the mental and emotional fortitude to handle the swings of the game, then you just might have what it takes. Another bit of advice, and this is exactly what I told Jack when he asked me this in email, is that quitting your job should be the last step. It should be a last resort, that you are making so much money as a card counter consistently that it doesn't make sense to stay at your job. That's what I did. There was a point at which it didn't make sense to answer phone calls for substitute teaching gigs because I was making significantly more money playing blackjack, and I was actually costing my family money by staying in my job. It shouldn't be hey, I don't like my job, so I'm gonna quit and I'm gonna try to do this blackjack thing. That's a bad strategy, because of all the card counters I've known, there are people that are making a living at it. There's no shortage of them. I could reference dozens of podcast interviews or people that I know that have made a living at it. But for every one of them, there are 10, 20, maybe 50 people that card counting is a great way to add to your income. Don't quit your day job. Make card counting your profitable hobby where you make 10, 20, 50. Some of these people are making $150,000 a year off of card counting on top of their day job. It's a whole other level of stress when your entire income is coming from those blackjack tables and you need to go on another trip so you can generate more EV to make a living off of it. Can it be done? Yes. I've done it. People on our teams have done it. Plenty of people at Blackjack Apprenticeship have done it. People are doing it to this day. Should you do it? I don't know. Hopefully this video helps. There's one last bit of advice I want to give you, which is if you want to pursue this, you are going to need a support system. You're going to need community. You're going to need a network of people that you can share information with and that you could say, hey, I'm thinking about going on a trip to this state or this city. What do you guys think? Or someone you can call and say, hey, I just got my butt kicked last night, and that was the third night in a row that I got my butt kicked. And those are the people that can encourage you. They're the people that can deal to you and make sure your game is still in tip-top shape. So you're going to need community. We've got a great community at Blackjack Apprenticeship. If you don't want to join our community, you can find another one, but don't try to do this on an island. That's it. Welcome to 2020. I hope you enjoy this video, and to learn more, check out all of our videos here on this YouTube channel, subscribe below, and visit blackjackapprenticeship.com.